Why did settings? Okay. Okay, so you should be seeing me any second now. I think there is like a 10-second delay between when I show up on camera and when you guys show up in the chat. And so let me know if you can hear me. How's everyone doing tonight? Sweet. How's it going, Trail Futures? Sweet, the video is good. Cool. I tried to do a little preliminary work behind the scenes to make sure things would work smoothly, messing around with the bitrate and the size of the overall image that we will be looking at. I've noticed in the past, like, streams tend to be pretty jumpy, and so I wanted to make sure when I'm streaming and reviewing a specific move, it didn't like jump around and look like it was only filming at like 2 frames per second. So I'm hoping it'll work out fine, but who knows. I've never seen a live stream go perfectly, and I don't suspect this one will be perfect either. So bear with me. I'm definitely learning. I'm using OBS, which is a totally new software for me, and there's a lot to learn. It's like learning a whole new language. So they say hi. Drink of choice tonight is this Hannaford branded seltzer water, raspberry flavor. One person just noticed you. They didn't see you before. How's the audio? Is the audio pretty good? I don't know about you guys, or if you guys have ever done a stream. I find them to be really nerve-wracking at first, so it takes me a good, I want to say 10 minutes to get over my like initial jitters, because all the things you have to do before actually going live, there's always a few more things than you remember, so you're always like, you're always short on time. You never have enough time. All right, cool. We have, how many people do we have in here? Let's check this out. All right, we have 22 people. That's pretty good. Yeah, it's awesome. Let me mute myself so we're not have. There we go. Okay, so this is going to be a totally weird experiment. I hope this works. I will kind of give you a rundown as to Mr. Tonko. Welcome to the live stream. I see you made it. I know you were supposed to be juggling a few things, and yeah. So I went out and I picked up this weird tablet thing, and I'm hoping this will kind of help me illustrate things a little bit better with one of these pens, but maybe I'll just end up using my mouse because I have bad handwriting. Cool. How many of you guys have snow where you guys are? Because we just got our first snow today that actually stuck. We've had flurries, but it melted the instant they hit the ground. Today, we actually had snow that accumulated, and it made me not so happy. Hello from Australia. Wednesday morning? Yeah, I guess I can see that. It's, what, 13, 14-hour delay? Okay, alright, let's try this out. See if this transition works. Poof! Now I'm in a smaller screen. Hello. 88. I'm kind of jealous of you right now, Joe. I miss Florida winters. I can tell you that. I mean, not that I spent much time in Florida because I've only been there for Santos for the most part, but it's definitely a little bit nicer than it is here. Snow in Colorado. Okay. How much did you guys get in Colorado? Pittsburgh. Just flurries? Good news is, I think usually Pennsylvania is, your riding season is a little bit longer than ours. Not by a whole lot, but I feel like it's a little bit more mild in Pennsylvania. But you're still pretty far north, so you get the full effect. 5 inches. Yeah, I've thought about taking up skiing or something again. We'll see. I don't know what I'm going to do this winter. I think I'm going to be visiting a lot of friends and going to a lot of indoor bike parks. It's cool. Wow, 8 inches in Maine. Holy crap. That's quite a bit. Yeah, I'll take 88 degrees over snow, but that's still 88 is you know, in New Hampshire when it's 88 degrees, I'm not riding that much. I can tell you that. Usually once it gets to above 85, I tend to just call it relaxation day. I'll take the AC and not go outside, but it's also pretty humid and buggy up in New Hampshire during summer once it gets around that temperature. And it's actually more of the bugs that start to bug me. No pun intended. California, you guys have fire warnings. Yeah, I'll take snow over fire warnings, but I do miss Southern California. I'm not sure if you guys knew, but I used to live in Huntington Beach, which is, I think it's south of Los Angeles. I can't remember. I was really young at the time. And that's where I learned to ride BMX, and it was amazing. You'd be in shorts and short sleeves in December. And so I probably rode a whole lot more when I was living in California than I did anywhere else. MTB Kevin says, you gotta get a mini fat bike. Yeah. Right now, Haley and I have an apartment, and it's a little bit limited in terms of storage. So I've been trying to really consolidate how many bikes I have. So right now, I pretty much just have the Calling. It's the bike I use for everything anyway, so I don't feel like I'm missing out that much. But yeah, it's kind of a bummer because I'd like to have a million bikes, but can't fit a million bikes. So I'm gonna. Oh, Joseph, you'll like this one. I did it. After your recommendation, I didn't get the new Sony Ace. What was it? The A7S or A7R? Can't remember which one you exactly recommended, but I did end up getting the new A7 III, which I'm pretty excited about because I can use my phone as a LCD screen when I'm recording, so make kind of framing myself and shooting myself a lot easier. I couldn't do that on the original A7. It's right back there. And then I also now can shoot in super slow motion with it. So should be getting some buttery crisp slow motion shots. Yeah, I'm pretty stoked on that camera. I got it at a pretty good steal. If you guys ever want really good deals on anything, go to Amazon and always browse the used section, because a lot of times you can find refurbished stuff at a fraction of the cost, and sometimes they'll even come with some extra gear, like sometimes we'll throw in like a tripod or something. So always look at the used section on Amazon. That's pretty much where I've bought every single piece of gear that I own. I like buying new, but I also like saving money. So anyway, let's give this a go. So this first one right here will be from Steven, and he gave me permission to use his name, so we'll be using his name. And he said, you know, he has a thick skin, doesn't mind criticism, so hats off to you. I personally, if it were me, I would be a little bit shy of being judged on camera, so if you guys feel that way, I can totally relate, because that's how I would personally feel. And I think if you find that you're having trouble with something, chances are there are a lot of other people. And if we take a step back and remember how it was in grade school, when the teacher would ask, does anyone have a question? And no one asked a question. Chances are a lot of people actually had a question, but everyone was too afraid to speak up. I was definitely in that boat. What's up, Timcat? Okay, so again, this is Steven we have over here, and so like I said, the theme of tonight is going to be a lot about gaining height, because most of the videos that were sent to me had something to do with jumping and getting height. And I think you're going to see a reoccurring theme through all of these videos. And I think most people who struggle with bunny hops struggle with this issue. And it's not just bunny hops, it's bunny hops and jumping. A lot of times they're very similar movements. The difference being, with jumping, you have to time things a little bit more, because you have a finite lip that you have to take off of, whereas if you're just doing a bunny hop, you in a parking lot, well, essentially, as long as you're not jumping over anything, you can bunny hop anytime you want. So all right, so here we go. So yeah, the big common theme with him was gaining height. And let's watch this. It's going to be a little bit weird, because like the tablet's down here that I'm looking at, so I'm going to be looking down a lot. So it's not because I'm ignoring you guys, it's because I'm looking at the tablet. So the big thing I'm noticing with Steven is, I'm just going to call him Steve. Steve is, you see right here when he's leaving the lip. Let me see if this works. There we go. You can see his hips are still, hold on, something's not showing up. There it is, showed up. His hips are they're not straight. So to me, what that is telling me, that he still has a lot of range of movement in his legs and hips to propel him upwards. A lot of people separate legs and hips. They're part of the same movement, but the hips are, if the hips are still bent, that's a telling sign that there's a lot of range of movement left. Why? Okay, so someone's saying there's a delay. Yeah, I'm not sure. That's a little bit frustrating because when I did every single test this week, it worked perfectly. Let me know if you guys see a delay. I'm gonna try this again. Oops. Let me know if that played buttery smooth or if it was skipping around and jittering. Alright, no delay here. Maybe it's my connection. Sometimes it fluctuates, so maybe sometimes it'll look smooth and other times it won't. Anyway, yeah, if we go back right here, and by the time you get right here, you want to have your body, if you're trying to get height, you want to have your body extending upwards. And the way I personally like to think about it, and I try to explain it to people, is it's very similar to how you actually jump on your feet. When you're jumping upwards on your feet, when you're at full extension, your hips are extended. You're not jumping up in the air with your torso down and your like hips bent. You're straight up and down. Think about like a basketball player, a football player reaching to catch a ball. They are fully extended upwards. So when Seth talks about doing a meerkat, it's kind of a good thing to think about. You really want to be thinking about getting pencil straight to get as much height as possible out of a movement. And again, with jumping in a situation like this, it comes down to timing because you have a lip that you're trying to jump from. And so essentially when you're right here, I know you can barely see him. Let me back up just a tad bit more. Right here, you want to be fully squished or fully compressed. You're like, this is when, if we're just jumping on our feet, so to speak, we are like crouched down, ready to explode upwards. And then by the time you get to here, you have to time it with the jump. You want to be exploding upwards. Now, at the same time that you are standing up tall, you're also bringing the handlebars into your hips. And so you're not necessarily pulling the handlebars to your hips. You're standing up tall, and in the process, the handlebars are coming to your hips. There's a difference, and it's hard to it takes some time to figure out the difference. Standing up tall, you bring the bars with you, and they will naturally come to your hips, and you're also pushing so these are, let's say that your handlebars are here and your feet are here, so your legs are pushing down and your upper body, your hips are extending, so they're straightening out, and so your bike will naturally move into more of a vertical position. I know when I'm doing a bunny hop or a jump, I'm not thinking about, oh, I need to get the bike vertical. I'm just thinking about going up. Let me know if that makes sense, or if I need to take a second and focus on something that totally does not make any sense. Yeah, so Diego is saying, so it's like pushing the rear wheel to the ground and using the bike as a lever. In some ways, yes. Um, I've actually wanted to work with someone who has some kind of, I don't know if telemetry data, some like acquisition data to actually see how the bike is rotating and if um, we are actually able to generate extra height with the bike um, using it as a lever. So let me try something real quickly. Let's go to so. All right, so you should be seeing a black screen. So if you think about it, the bike in its most primitive form looks some. Let me use a better color. Black is not the color I wanted. Of course, it's going to not cooperate with me now that I'm trying to do it live. One moment, technical difficulties. Ah, there we go. Okay, so in its most primitive form, a bike looks something like this. Okay, took a second for that to show up. So you have your handlebars right here. You have your front wheel like right here, your back wheel right there. Okay, that's a scooter, but you get the point. And you're actually standing because your bottom bracket is somewhere around right here. So when you're standing on the bike, you're kind of more standing something like this. Hopefully the rest of the image will show up. You should see a person, but there we go. He showed up. Okay, so let me choose a better color here. Let's go with a red. Okay. So when you are jumping, you're standing up tall, but yes, you are pushing off the ground. You're pushing yourself off the ground. So you have force that's going. Let me. It needs to be a little bit small. All right, so you have force from your legs and hips pushing down, and so you're not exactly in the center of this thing. You're pushing down right here. You have like 1 foot right here and 1 foot right there because your feet are offset. But ultimately they're pushing through the bottom bracket. So when you are standing up tall and pushing off the ground, you're pushing your back wheel into the ground, and your back wheel is pushing in that direction as you're pulling the bars in that direction. It's essentially pivoting around this as you are standing up. Does that make any sense? Um, on my side, I can't quite tell if the stuff is coming in staggered. Like it will I'll draw the arrow on my tablet. It will show up, and then on the screen that I'm monitoring, it will show up like 5 seconds later. And sometimes the things will show up out of order. So I'm hoping that's not the case for what you're seeing. So Ryan's saying, I think I pulled the back wheel off the ground before riding off the lip. So that is a very common issue that I see. It's not like a terrible issue, but it's kind of like a premature jump. You want your back wheel to be on the ground, essentially to the tip of the lip. If you find that you are pulling your back wheel off the ground before the tip of or the end of the lip, you're not getting the full range of movement that you can. Okay, cool. It sounds like you guys can see the arrows. No, I'm actually Joseph. I'm not looking at the live stream. I'm looking at the OBS display that I'm monitoring. I have the YouTube stream completely off. The only thing I'm looking at is the chat. But that's good to know. Okay, anyway. So let's go back to this and give it a little wipe. So while he is extending his hips, he wants to be pushing down with his legs, and then you want to think about getting tall, getting as tall as possible off the lip. Maybe not as tall as possible, but think about getting tall. Because it's so nice to have a little bit of like not necessarily pencil straight, but if you want the full range of movement, you do have to get pencil straight. But it's always, I find myself never needing the full range of movement. I'm always like 95% extended. And so he will be, as he's pushing down, he's pulling, his bars are being pulled back, but they're only being pulled back as a result of him standing up tall. And that's a big difference. So keep that in mind. It's the result, your bars are being pulled towards your hips as a result of getting tall. And it's not the opposite way around. If you're trying to pull your bars to your hips without getting tall, you're going to actually pull yourself down. So if you think about standing up tall, and then in the process, the bars will come to your hips. Now, you can obviously, along the way, have a firm grip and pull it back, but I find that framing it in that mindset makes more sense to me, and people who I've explained that to also seem to get that a little bit better. Mike, I think most of us are, I think for most of us, getting the bike vertical is scary, and it's right at the point where you're about to loop out. Okay, yeah, that's a very valid concern. I'm trying to think of how to explain. Obviously, balance is very important. So you have to have some awareness of your bike. So if you're trying to get tall, sometimes like you do have to keep balance in mind. So obviously you don't want to be leaning so far back that your back end is just gonna loop out. So I think one of the things people have trouble with is they're so focused on getting their weight back that they're looping out instead of thinking about trying to get tall. That being said, you can still loop out in the process. You just have to be a little bit more careful. But if you're not really focused on trying to get your weight back, there's a train coming, so give me a second while it passes. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's somewhat loud here. Okay, it passed. So as you're standing up tall, you let me find a better way to explain this. But I'm gonna circle back to this. I'm gonna answer a question I just saw from Mr. Tonka, which I like. So you're not pulling with your arms, you're more pushing your hips forward to the bars. Not quite. You are you're pulling in a sense of like, think about hanging from a bar. You're just hanging there. You have like, there's like tension in your arms to hold yourself up, but you're not like muscling yourself up. You know, like you're not pulling yourself up. You're just hanging there. And it's hard to explain that. You're pulling through your arms, you're holding onto the bars. It might be a better way to describe that. So you can, the primary function is you want to get tall. Can you show us an example? Yeah, actually, let me break out hard drive real quickly. Where would I have? I think I'll have what I need on this hard drive. So, going back to what Mr. Tonka was saying, you're standing up tall, and naturally, in the process, the bars are going to come to your hips. So you're not necessarily trying to get your hips to the bars. At least that's not the way I've thought about it. And I don't think it's going to help to think about it that way, though maybe it will. I'm thinking about getting tall, but you can assist that movement by rowing the bars to your hips, as long as that's not pulling your torso down. And so you really need to have a lot of tension in this part of your body, like that, like as long as you're using your glutes and you're driving down through the pedals as you're standing up tall, you should be able to resist being pulled down to your bars. Okay, let me really quickly find a example. Let's see. Going way back on this hard drive. Let's see. Ooh, this actually might be some footage I never. Glad I recorded this. I never actually ended up using it in a video. Let's see if this is any handy. know if that's the best example. Maybe I have something better. This might be the clip. We'll see. I think we may have found the clip. Give me a second to... Okay, I'm gonna try this one. Minimize that real quickly. Alright, and alright, this was from last year sometime. I think back when my bike didn't... No, this had to be a little while before that. This is from a really old hard drive. Okay, nice shot of socks. So a lot of times when I do this, I try to show an example of what not to do, and it's hard for me to demonstrate that, but I might have a few of those clips here. Oh yeah, that's so side note, this is me trying to explain I was looking at an English bunny hop here, so that's what you're gonna see. I'm trying to show why English bunny hops weren't exactly ideal. Uh-oh, just noticed my bitrate dropped. Okay, so if you guys remember, English bunny hop is when both wheels come off the ground. If you're trying to English bunny hop over something, your back wheel has to leave the ground right here to jump over this object. Whereas if you do an American bunny hop, it can leave the ground right there. So it's actually easier. I know I'm getting sidetracked, but I just wanted to point out something that I find is pretty handy. And why I don't think English bunny hops are completely useless. They just aren't super useful for jumping over objects. So, alright. Totally sidetracked. Let me get back to the real footage. I think I have a... Okay, so here I was trying to show a bump jump, which is kind of being in the position of jumping and then using a bump on the road to get airborne. But don't really want to get too sidetracked with that. Where is it? I know I saw... Is this it? Okay, so this is still a bump jump, but it'll work fine for what we're talking about. So pay close attention. So I have... Here's something else that might be important to talk about. So here we are... This is not a great position to jump from. It's not athletic. My weight is not centered. I'm leaning forward. If I were to jump or push off my legs in this position, I'd be going in this, like that direction, when I really want to be going up. So come back here. And this is a technical thing I thought I was going to run into. Okay. So, right here, I shifted my weight back. Now, my head is over my feet. Now I'm in an athletic position to be able to jump upwards, because before I was leaning forwards. Now I have my body weight over my feet. My center of gravity is in line with essentially my head and feet. Now this is the position you can start getting tall and jumping up from. So this one, I was not demonstrating a tall bunny hop. I was just, even for a small bunny hop, you do get your weight pretty far back. That's a great thing to pick up on. And so the first part of the bunny hop is getting the front wheel slightly off the ground, because if you get the front end of the bike slightly off the ground, that means your arms are further back, which means your shoulders are further back. That means you've gotten your weight further back. So thinking about trying to get your front wheel off the ground first before you explode upwards is very handy. So again, I'm using this is a bit of a delay because I'm using this little feature to propel me upwards. I'm not just using my legs alone. So you can see, like, I'm honestly not pulling the bars back all that much here. But that might not be the best example, so let's see if we can find a better one in this. This a winner? Nope, that's still a bump jump. I'm using the pen to go back and forth. I should just use the mouse or the keypad. So, again, notice the bars are being pulled back because I'm shifting my weight back, not because I'm necessarily pulling the bars back with my arms. I think here I was trying to show a mistimed bunny hop. I'm not exactly sure what was going on there. Obviously, can you explain at what point you are exerting max pressure through your feet? Yeah. I usually show what to do, and I think so. Right. So here I'm not exerting any pressure through my legs. I'm just kind of hanging out. Can you make the player control wider to let's see if I can make this any wider. Fortunately, I can't with this setup. I can't zoom in, so to speak, unfortunately. Or actually, yes, I can. I think I just thought of a way. Display capture. There you are. Let's see if this works. Ah. Think I did. It's not going to be a whole lot better, but let's try this. Magic. Okay. So I'd say right about here is when I'm exerting the most explosive power. From here to here. And then at that, like from right here, I'm like letting the lip and takeoff do the rest of the movement. I should also mention that it becomes exponentially easier to something funky going on with camera over here. Give me a second. Not that. Let's all right, there we go. Having two monitors is super confusing. So Peter's asking, do I pull back on my arms or all for my legs? I don't want to say my arms are completely useless, but 95% of this movement is happening from the legs. If it's your legs that are generating all the upward force to propel you up into the air. Your arms play a role in rotating the bike and bringing the bike up with you, but it's your legs that are doing all the grunt work. So notice here, again, my hip, in this example, my hips, that's pretty straight. I probably could get a little bit more pop out of this, but I'm trying to use this to get some pop. That's when you see this position, that's when you know you're getting the full range of movement out of the explosive jump. So if you see a bend in your hips here, you still have range of movement left. Okay, so let's go back and look at Steven's video. And we can we go back, we can see the contrast. Let me zoom in again just so you guys can get a better view. Well, I'm just gonna block myself. Actually, no, I know how to fix that, I think. Haha, there I am. I'm revealing my secrets. I'll move myself out to the side. There we go. Anyway, so zooming in on Steven. You did that transition? You can see he still has quite a bit of range of movement in his hips. So, why didn't it make that big? Let me erase that real quick. Did it ever bother you in school when teachers would like erase the board and then they would like leave that like one little bit and they would just pretend like it didn't exist? That would drive me nuts in school. I'd always want to like walk up and be like, fix it and be like, there we go. So, okay. Side tangent done. So, that's the big important thing from this video that I want you guys to get is standing up tall is one thing that most people aren't doing. They're not getting the full range of movement. So, range of movement and height, assume. Okay, so let's move on to another video. Cool. I didn't pay attention though. Yeah, it depends. I had a really good teacher for junior year of English, and it was one teacher that no matter what they talked about, I would listen to. And English was one of my lesser favorite courses, but my junior year, I had a really good English teacher. He was not too far out of school. He was excited to teach. He was able to relate to us, and it goes to show you what a good teacher can do. And he had a big impact on me as a person. I'm not the greatest, grammarian. I don't really like writing a whole lot, but I learned a lot from him, and I always look back to high school and remember him because he had a big impact. Cool. So let me again zoom in on this really quickly. Well, I zoomed out there, but I promise I will be zooming in a second. Cool, there we go. Alright, let me just, I didn't show you. There you go. I feel like live streams are a juggling act. I've gotten a lot of respect for live streamers. Okay, so this is actually a good one. This one's different. Can you contrast? Eric is asking, can you contrast your body position before standing for bunny hops versus jumps? Is it a manual position before bunny hop? Eric, hold that thought or tell me to come back to that thought. All right, so yes, Mike, this is you. So this was him trying to get his weight further back, which shows him looping out, and which is why we were talking about that earlier. So this is a pretty good one because it shows him doing the bunny hop, and he actually does a pretty good job. I'm just trying to get you guys to see it a few times. He does a pretty good job getting his body fully, I would say this is pretty close to fully extended. So what's going on here? Now, my interpretation of what I'm seeing is that while he is getting full range of movement, he starts to like get like his bars kind of pull his chest down. Let me show you what I mean. So right here you can see his chest drop. And that to me is telling me that I feel like he's focusing a little bit too much on just pulling the bars up and not enough on standing up. And so a lot of the bunny hop comes down to timing. You see a lot of people do a bunny hop and they're rushing the movement. It's really jerky. The movements don't flow into each other. And yeah, when you're a beginner, it's obviously, or when you're, I don't like that term, when you're learning a new skill, it takes a while to hone in on what you are doing. I know for me, when I'm learning something, what I think I'm doing and what I'm actually doing are usually two different things. So it's always something good to keep in mind. And we're empty. Seltzer down. Okay, so to me, I feel like Mike would benefit from actually doing this movement a little bit slower and really focus on using his legs to drive himself, or legs and hips to drive himself upwards in a very explosive move. Because he does, overall, he does, you know, if you look at his hips here, they, it looks like this. So that's pretty straight from what I've seen compared to other people. Alright, Mike's saying, it feels hard to let the bike come up, and I do feel rushed on the shove. So on the shove part, that shouldn't be the primary focus. The shove is what you're doing to get the extra height. That's like the last little bit of height in trying to level the bike off. The most important part about the bunny hop is popping off the ground, exploding, like driving your legs into your ground and pushing yourself off the ground. Reading chat right now, it looks like Eric is saying, it looks like he lacks rotation around the axis of rotation bottom bracket, as opposed. It looks like you extend the bars forward. Yeah, so it depends on the situation. Sometimes I do land front wheel first. Sometimes I land with both wheels when it comes to that. But what I'm thinking about when I'm doing that is really my back wheel. I'm not really focusing on the let me back up, because that's gonna get confusing really quickly, and I don't want to go off in too many different tangents. I will say, doing this stuff live is really different. I'm very I'm pretty introverted, and speaking live was never a forte of mine, so this is a whole new learning experience for me. So I'm like, I don't know if you can see, but I'm like sweating a little bit. Like, this is a workout for me. Woo. Okay. I went to the local clinic this weekend with regular guy mountain bike, and we practiced popping the front end with nothing else. I was getting better and better, uh, better at getting the front wheel higher. Yeah, so the getting more pop comes down to a few things. It comes down to obviously leg strength. If you have pretty weak legs, you're not gonna be able to jump as high. So there is being athletic to some degree definitely helps out. Now, I've never spent much time. I have worked out. I've gone to the gym, but I'm not someone who, you know, goes to the gym very often. I haven't been to the gym in a few years, to be honest. So any leg strength I have is pretty much residual from the gym or just from doing bunny hops in general. And I do ride a lot, so I will say I probably have a pretty good build from that, but I don't think you necessarily need to go work out in the gym just to bunny hop, though it probably will help. So when you, sorry, I got sidetracked there. When you're doing this, it needs to be a really strong, explosive movement where everything needs to flow into each other. And so the best advice I have for Mike right now is I think he's on the right track. Like, most of what I see going on is actually pretty freaking good. I think timing and kind of letting the explosive phase like draw out a little bit longer before he starts to pick the back wheel up will benefit him greatly. A lot of people tend to, again, rush things, and so the second their back wheel leaves the ground, they're already trying to pull it off the ground. We'll go back to one of my clips really quickly, but so his back wheel just left the ground, and he's trying to pull it up really, like, pretty hard. Can't tell if he's trying to jump over the balance beam there, or if he's jumping next to it. Okay. Okay, back to this guy. Let me resize it really quickly so we can all see this. I just lost it. Come back here. I think it's this guy right here. So I'm standing up, standing up, standing up. Let me move this because this is totally in the way. Can I go away? Apple, make it go away. Alright. And that's frustrating. Well, we're not really focusing on my head, so just, oh, there it goes. Went away. Yay. So, I'm still, even when I'm off the ground, like, my legs are still straight for a little bit. I don't immediately try to yank the bike off the ground. And that's a term that you'll see me use. I find people who rush bunny hops they're trying to pull the bike off the ground. They're like, I'm in the air, come up with me. Where you kind of have to, like, let it decide it wants to come up with you. Like, it's, you know, a free spirit child. You need to guide it. You need to give it the inspiration to come off the ground. You can't just tell it what to do. And so the shove comes, I would say that's about, my hips are pretty high up there. And so my back wheel is already 8 inches off the ground, and I am shoving it, but I'm really focusing on picking my legs up. And another difference is my knees are pretty. This is another thing I think that's pretty important. That I don't think I've really talked about or mentioned before. My knees right here are like almost, if you were to draw a line, right here. My knees are in line with my shoulders. They're stacked right underneath my shoulders, which doesn't seem like much, but I find that a lot of people, they'll have their knees like back here when they're trying to pick the bike up. Dominic, Phil, I ride at the wheel mill. Awesome place. I'm jealous. I think you said you're in Pittsburgh. I'll be going back there sometime this year because that place is always a riot. I did not go last year. I was kind of bummed about that. Okay. Do these techniques transfer if I learn to jump in the jump room? Okay, so when you have a lip is naturally putting your front wheel into the position you want to be. So these do apply in a very similar way. However, the takeoff is moving the bike in the position you want to for you, so you can concentrate on just getting tall. So that's why bunny hops and jumping are actually very similar. It's just with a bunny hop, you have no help. With a lip, you have something that's rotating the bike, so you're in a better position to explode upwards. Yes, Tim, you're absolutely right. It's definitely about lower body position. Lower body is key to being able to jump high. And each movement feeds into the next. Oh, cool. Let me recirculate. I unintentionally answered your question, Eric. But I love it when that happens. I'm gonna run off and get another seltzer really quickly because my voice is my throat's getting a little dry. Be right back. Okay. I'll try not to cough. I know I hate it when other people do that on live streams. It's kind of a nervous habit for me. I just kind of do it. All right. Let's close out of this guy really quickly. No, I'm going to keep that there because that's helpful. All right. Now we're going to look at this guy right here. All right, unfortunately this one was filmed vertically, so let's see if I can frame it in such a way that it will look good on for this. Might have to zoom out a little bit because I think I'm going to clip his head if I do this. I thought 10-year-olds were supposed to be good with technology. Out of curiosity, how old were, or no, what year did all you guys get smartphones? I'm kind of curious to know. I got my first smartphone in, what year was it? 2009, 2010? I wouldn't consider myself an early adopter, because this is like when the iPhone 3GS came out. And I didn't have a phone before that, so jumping to iPhone 3GS, it was pretty, like, that was a big deal for me. But I remember the camera just being still absolutely garbage. I never used phone's camera to like the, I think it was my Nexus 5 that I finally started using the camera. I remember when I got my iPhone, there's still like that debate. Everyone was still like naysaying touchscreens, like, oh, they'll never catch on. They're like garbage. And Blackberries are the future. And it's like, oh, okay. Like I'm. It's just a phone, but I never understood why people got so opinionated about what phone you had. It's like, you use it just for surfing the internet. Like, still does Facebook, it still does Instagram, it still does pretty much all the things. Just, yeah. Anyway, let's look at this video really quickly. Quick keep the video. Let's see. This was in super slow-mo. I keep using K on my keyboard to start and stop the video because I've gotten used to doing that with YouTube. But then when I go to any other video player that's not YouTube, I quickly find out that you can't do that. So getting the preload and exploding upwards. And so right here, I have to say, this is a really, to me, this looks like from this angle at least, this looks like a really good position. Everything about the preload looks pretty spot on. Maybe if I were to criticize that a little bit, I tend to find myself pushing off my arms a little bit before I start pushing off with my legs. So if you look at this, it looks like he's extending both his arms and legs at the same time, where I find I'll extend my arms a little bit earlier so to get my weight a little further back. But I'm just reading some of the comments about the phones. Tim had a Palm. Man, I remember, what was it? The Palm Pre was supposed to, like, everyone was like gutted when they discontinued that or something. I never understood I never saw one in person, but I remember Palms had a very special part in a lot of people's lives. Okay, anyway, back to this jump. And right here, his back wheel hasn't left the ground, and I feel like he's already trying to yank the bike up. And see how he's hunched over? Yeah, it's definitely sort of like pumping in transition. That was in regards to the slightly pushing or extending your arms before your legs. Yes, you're absolutely right. So you can see he's maybe that's not accurate. It's more like there's still range of movement to be had right there. He can still get a little bit taller and get a little bit more power out of his legs, because right now his handlebars are almost going to be pulling his torso down. Yes, the Palm Pre. That's the one I'm thinking about. So do I think you need to go over your back wheel more? Let's go back and take a look at this. Come back here. Nope. There you go. Sorry, Haley's giggling back there and caught my attention. No battery?
No. Bye-bye Wi-Fi.
Oh, your Wi-Fi.
RIP.
So total side note, completely unrelated to this stream. Haley and I have still not gotten our own internet connection here, though we are close enough to a neighbor who has one of those Xfinity Wi-Fi on demand things, so you can sign up with Xfinity and pay $60 a month for one device. So her internet just ran out on her computer, so I heard her making a sad face or sad noise and caught my attention. Alright, back to actually talking about bikes. So yeah, you know what, looking back at this, I think you would benefit from getting further back, because what getting further back would do is that it would put your bike, well, it would put you, hold on, let me go back before yeah, because right here, your hips, your shoulders are a little, that's kind of, I can't draw a straight, I need a straight edge or something. Ha, I got a ruler. See if this, thanks Haley. It's Haley's ruler, not mine. Alright, that's not going to the right spot. Let me do that again. Alright, that's a little bit better. You can see there that his shoulders are quite a ways still in front of his knees. And so, ideally when you're doing this, you want your legs, or you want your shoulders to be over your knees, like that. Hi Dominic, thanks for joining. Were you watching the live stream while at work? Uh-oh. The frame rate just dropped. It's back. Cool. So, let me find my video really quickly, so we can try to compare and contrast. Okay, I'm way up there. Let's bring this window back down and back down to orbit. I might have to resize this guy really quickly. Learning this live stream stuff is a total new thing for me. It's bizarre. There's like many things to be monitoring and looking at and confusing me. I want to make this smaller. There we go. I think there's like two things I'm resizing. Makes me appreciate like live stream gamers, like, and some of the other people who live stream, like. Alright, so looking at my shoulders, oops, that was not the spot I wanted it. That's also not exactly in the spot I wanted it. That's why I don't write. You can see that my shoulders are pretty much in line with my knees, and that's the position you want to be in, because my hips are back and now I can explode upwards. Hey, welcome to the stream, MTB Daddy. Glad you could join us. Okay, now if we go back to the other clip, that's the thing I want. Get this ugly person out of the way right there. There we go. Can see right here he's starting to extend, and his shoulders are still in front of his knees, especially when he's crouched. So it comes back to timing when you're extending your arms and then when you start to stand up. And again, a lot of this stuff is you a lot of times you need someone to point this out, but in the end you need to go out and just experiment and see what works, and try, like, experiment with different things, because most of your learning will happen almost on accident. You find out what you didn't want to do, and like a bunny hop, is not a very, like, you don't have to be super strong to do a bunny hop. There's nothing about bunny hop that requires a crazy amount of strength. If you want to jump super high, sure, but it's kind of like martial arts, where you're trying to be what's the term, finesse. You're finessing the movement, and so if it feels like the movement is really jerky and you're like forcing something to happen, there's a good chance that there's something going on in that movement that isn't quite right. So let's watch this back once more and move on to the next clip. Next clip is going to be a little bit different. Yeah, so you can see right here he didn't quite get the full range of movement, and then he's trying to suck the bike up. And this is pretty common. I see quite a few people doing this. Again, you want to stand up tall, and then once you've gotten your explosive movement out of the way, then you bring your bike up with you. So Ryan, no, right now I'm no longer in New Hampshire. I'm up in Vermont, and it's complicated because right when I graduated, Haley was living in Vermont, and my mom was living in New Hampshire, which was my home base. And she had talked about wanting to move, but I think the fact that she had surgery, because you guys might remember she almost passed away this past or last winter, actually around this time, and so she had heart surgery, and she really wanted to move to Seattle, and I think the heart issue is what finally made her want to make that happen a lot quicker than she originally anticipated. So my mom moved out to Seattle. However, the complicated part, so when I was graduating, when I was back home, that was in the back of my mind. Part of me didn't want to leave the New Hampshire house because I wanted to still be there for my mom. Part of me wanted to be up in Vermont with Haley, which is like 2.5 hours away ish, and that was really bugging me. It was stressing me out in many ways because I felt like I was being pulled in two different locations, and then I thought that the move wouldn't happen super fast, so which is why I spent a lot of time redoing the basement and making it my bike shop. And then pretty much right after that finished, or I was done with that, she kind of made the decision, yeah, I want to move out to Seattle. And so because of my dad's retirement and my mom was pretty financially savvy, she was able to move out to Seattle without selling the house in New Hampshire. But that house is kind of in disrepair in many ways. It's an old house from the late 1800s. The paint on sides completely peeling. There's some leaks and stuff, and it requires a lot of work. And so we can't just put it on the market and sell it. So we're holding on to it a little bit. Hopefully, come spring, we'll be able to sell it. But while she's over in Seattle, I travel back and forth to New Hampshire, so some of my stuff is still there. It's just I'm almost never there. I only go back every once in a while to make sure that it's not on fire. Check the mail if we got any mail, those kinds of things. So I know that's completely off subject. It's something that I wanted to talk about in some form, but it's hard for me to just bring it up in a video. So I guess live streaming is a pretty good way to do that. Okay, that was a tangent in itself, but I think it's good for you guys to kind of get a little bit more information. I don't really share this stuff on the YouTubes. All right, now I know Joe wanted to learn how to whip. Whip and tabletop were the things that he wanted to learn. So let's go take a look at his videos and see if we can pull one up that, because Joe went all out. He sent me like 30 different clips and they're all really useful. Come back here. I don't think I'll spend as much time on the whips per se, but yeah, let's. All right, there we go. Cool. Come back here. Lost my cursor for a second. Alright, Mr. Tonka. Mr. Tonka was looking at how to whip. And let's... there we go. Found my cursor again. Mouse keeps running away. So, first off, I gotta say, this is actually a pretty decent whip. If I'm gonna like be super critical, I'll comment that you didn't land with your tires like pointing in the same direction. You're still kind of, you didn't bring your whip back, but it doesn't matter. That's it's not necessarily a whip off like Crankworks whip off quality, but that's a good whip. Especially one of the things I find is off a small jump like this, you can either do two things. You can whip the bike out super sideways but land crooked, or you can not get a whip super far out but land straight. It's usually like, it's hard. I've very rarely seen people do both unless you're getting a lot of airtime. All right, so he was talking about how he wants to get his whips out more. So whips are a funny trick